Okay, Darksiders, so from the beginning, there are several times in this video where I mistakenly referred to Zemo as Nemo. Yes, I am aware that Nemo is the animated fish and that Zemo is the Marvel villain. Are we good? Okay, let's go. Alright, look, you guys know I'm a Marvel fan through and through, and this is what I love about Marvel, how they write. How about the third episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the power broker? For the love of cookies. This thing was so good from every aspect, and they do something here. They use a device, a very powerful device that's used in every single movie you've ever watched and loved. Every single one. I don't care what it is. It could be comedy, it could be drama, it could be action adventure, it could be sci-fi, it could be fantasy, whatever. They use it, everybody uses it. It's just to what degree do they use it, and they do a stupendous, a fantastic job of using this device, especially in this episode, and I'll share with you what that is in a second. Alright, so let's just jump in, man. Let's just go, spoilers by the way. So, let's just go full force. I'm going to start with this, right? Because I know it makes some of you guys uneasy, but I want to get it out the way first. And I want you to listen to me, hear what I'm saying here. Again, I love how they are dealing with race in this show. And the writer, Malcolm Spellman, the head writer, and his team said that they plan to do that in the show. So if you're wondering if they are trying to address issues of race in the show, you don't need to wonder anymore. They are. He said it. But here's what I want you to consider, because I know some people hear that and they're like, listen, man, don't push any agendas on me, man. Just give me something that I enjoy watching. I'm watching this to escape all of that. I don't want this in my entertainment. I want to encourage you to look at that differently. Because they're not trying to push an agenda on you here, or at least I don't think so. I think that they are telling a story that by and large has at least one black actor that is the lead in this story, and you are getting aspects of this story from his perspective, from his experience. That's not pushing an agenda. That is simply reflecting the experience of what it would be like to be in a story like this if you were black. Think about it that way. I just want to encourage you to do that as you're watching this show. But I do want to talk about some of the highlights in this episode and how they dealt with race, but they did it so well, and you have to admit that if you saw it, did it feel abrasive to you? Did it feel like they were pushing something on you? It didn't. It felt like it was a natural flow with what was going on in the show. My favorite scene is by far the scene on the plane when they're all talking and Falcon talks about what he put in Cap's book, and he gave him a song by Marvin Gaye. And then he looks at Bucky and he asks Bucky, did you like the song? And Bucky's like, listen, no, I like 40s music. And Falcon's looking at him like, you don't like it? Everybody likes Marvin Gaye. Cap loved that song. And then Zemo chimes in and he makes a reflection about how important that song is to the African-American experience. And it's hilarious, right? Because Falcon looks at him like, that's mildly inappropriate, but he's not wrong here. Everybody loves Marvin Gaye. And then finally Bucky's like, again, I listen, all right, I like Marvin Gaye. They do little things like that all throughout. We have another instance like that when they're walking across the bridge into Manipur. We're going to get into Manipur. Whoa, Manipur. Anyway, we'll get into Manipur. But Falcon is saying, listen, man, you got to give me some different clothes, man. I look like, I look like a pimp. And Zemo chimes in and says, only someone outside of the United States would think that an African American wearing those clothes looks like a pimp. He reflects a racial statement back at Falcon. So the way that the writers are doing this throughout the show, I feel like it's just so finely placed and done so well that it doesn't detract from the story. It doesn't feel like a forced statement or comment, but it is within the flow of the story build, and I love how Malcolm and the writing team are doing that. Let's talk about the visuals in this. How about the fight cinematography? For the love of cookies! What I love about how they deal with the action in this is how it's so appropriately woven into the story. It wasn't like we were watching this just waiting for the next fight sequence to come. We were so wrapped up into the writing, into the story build, that when these things came, they were just added bonuses to how much we enjoyed the story, but they weren't the linchpin of what the story needed to drive it forward. It was the writing, right? It was the story build. It was watching all of this unfold that pulled us into this narrative and kept us pressing forward to find out what was going to happen next. So I love how they handled the action in this as well. Let's talk a bit about the performances because they're fantastic. And I just want to highlight one thing here when we talk about the performances, and that is the chemistry, man. Woo! The chemistry between Bucky and Falcon is fantastic. Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are great together in this, so much so that we have to see them in more films. I love what they do here with these two characters and the back and forth that they have going on. But then when the Baron joins them, played by Brawl, he adds to that duel and they become a trio with great chemistry between them. I really enjoyed seeing those three on screen together. Such great fun to watch as this story builds. And then we add Sharon Carter and we add some of the other characters, and they do such a good job of bringing all of these characters together and all of them having such great chemistry as this third episode moves forward. Also, I was really blown away by the cinematography in this episode as well. How they did such a good job of bringing the surrounding to life around us. Outside of the performances, outside of the writing, the surrounding, the world building here was fantastic as well. The tone, the mood, all of it fit so well with all of the different elements in this third episode that it really came together to tell a cohesive story, a synergistic story, if you will, that works so well. And I was really impressed by that. So we can't talk about that without talking about the sound design as well. Everything in this episode came together so well. I was impressed by that too. The sound design was perfect. The choice of music that was used was perfect. Everything just, again, synergistically fit so well in this episode that I was really blown away. So I think that you have to talk about that when you talk about how good this episode is. Now, the crazy thing is we talk about these different elements and these things that we break down here. These are all things that come together to create the whole of an experience for us, such that we might not be paying attention to them individually, but it is what is coming together to give you the corporate, right, enjoyment of how good this episode was. Now, I said to you that they use a device here, right, that everybody uses. It doesn't matter what film you're watching, and what that device is tension. The use of tension in this episode was absolutely fantastic, and everybody does it. You see the tension between the characters, you see the tension in the writing, you see the tension even in the cinematography and what they show us visually, the types of camera angles that they choose to show us, the lighting, the mood, all of that, and even the music in this, even the sound design, all brings a level of tension to this episode that really pulls you through this story. It is a huge part of the driving force about why this episode was so enjoyable for so many people. Now, for sure, the level of tension varies, right? It's not the same. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about, Al? You're talking about tension like the way I felt when I saw Jaws and I couldn't take a bath for a year because I just knew, I know, Mama, there's sharks in the water. I can't get in that water. That's how I was when I saw Jaws. I was terrified. Tension lasted a long time in me. Each part of this episode has varying levels of tension, but tension nonetheless. And tension is a device used to hook a viewer because it causes an angst in the viewer. It throws the viewer off balance, and all we want is release from that tension. And the way that they build this story is the tension is there almost at every level, and we're sucked into it now because we want answers. We want release from the tension, and they do such a good job of using that device in this episode. Here are some places where you see tension. We have the natural tension, kind of the low-grade tension, right, between Bucky and Falcon that's always there. It's that playful tension. It's that tension that brings in the comedic element into the show that we love. But then we have other tension where we have all these different questions that are not answered between characters. We have tension when we look at Agent Walker because we really don't know what's going on with him. We have tension when we see the antagonist in this, or at least who we believe the antagonist to be, Carly, because we're not really sure what's going on with her. On one sense, we feel for her in her cause, but on another sense, we see that what she's doing is wrong. There's a source of tension that's there. We have tension when we're trying to figure out who the power broker is, and some people are theorizing theorizing at this point that it might be Agent Carter. We have tension when we're trying to figure out what's really going on with Nemo. Is he trying to help? What's his alternate agenda? What's going to happen with him in the long run? All these different levels of tension are used in this episode to really pull us in. Now, they do something cinematically, even with the theme of tension, that I really loved, and that's around the city of Manipur. I think I'm saying that right. That city is done so well that it really becomes a character within itself in this episode. I love how they built the city. It feels, it looks, its inhabitants act like its own character, even when they're walking across the bridge. And Nemo says, "You smell that?" And I think Falcon asks what that is. And Nemo says, "It's Manipur," giving it human characteristics. Then when we get to Lower Manipur, we get the tone and feel of what it might be like, what it might feel like to live in a place like this. Manipur is giving characteristics almost like a character. It looks a certain way. It generates a certain mood. The people act a certain way. It is a character within its own to help set the tone and push this story forward. This thing was good from almost every single aspect. And then at the end, we get this final tension builder, right? When Bucky is starting to see the beads. And then we get the big reveal of Ao, and we find that Ao is looking for Nemo because he's got to pay for what he did to Chitaka. Tension at its highest moment at the end, and then boom, they drop it. And now we're all foaming at the mouth to see next week's episode. Now, when it comes to theories, I don't really have any at this point, except to say that I do not think that Agent Carter is the power broker. Well, I take that back. I do have one theory, and I do think that somehow, some way, Agent Walker will become in line with the power broker, and that is how he will get his hands on the serum if he does not already have the serum. I do think that he's going to turn dirty. I just think it's in him, and I think we can see it coming. If you enjoyed this, make sure that you subscribe, and let's go to the next video. Peace.